research projects, including research on online sexual abuse and exploitation of children, and she has published on international and local journals on clinical psychology-related topics, such as assessment, family, and children. She has held several leadership positions in different organizations, former chair of the Department of Psychology, former director of the Social Development Research Center for DLSU, a past president of the ASEAN Regional Union of Psychological Societies, or ARUPS, and a past president of the Psychological Association of the Philippines. Currently, she is a board member of the Philippine Association of Child and Play Therapy, or PhilPlay, vice president of Balik Kalipay, psychologist of the Child Placement Committee of the National Authority for Child Care, or NACC, and a member of CHAD's Technical Committee for Psychology. She is a recipient of national awards in psychology. In 2016, the PAP named her as Outstanding Psychologist of the Philippines for her contribution in psychology as a practitioner, researcher, and leader in different organizations. In 2023, the Professional Regulation Commission named her as the Outstanding Professional of the Year awardee in psychology and was one of the 5 nominees for the NUBLA Award for the same year, the highest award given by PRC to all professionals. And of course, to present to you the updated report of the Psychology Law Revision, please welcome on stage Dr. Karing Caroja, Chair of the TWG for Psych Law Revision.
Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. Thank you, John, for the introduction. So this morning, I'm going to present the updates on the revision of the Psych Law, and we have been doing this 3 consecutive years. So for many of you who attended the Bicol, the PAPCon in Bicol, the PAPCon in Baguio, you may heard and know most of the updates, but there are some new updates that the committee can share with you. Okay, next slide. Okay, so in terms of the Psych Law, so I would just like to mention how it is located in the SDG, how important the revision of the Psych Law is. So SDG 3 is good health and well-being, and then we know SDG 4 is quality education. And in the revision of the law, the general goal is to increase the number of qualified mental health professionals that will do the different tasks to take care of the well-being of Filipino people in general, and of course also in SDG 4 is quality education. And then if we move to the next slide, we know how important the revision is in terms of the workforce. Okay, so we can look at it, like what I said, SDG 3, SDG 10 also, and then SDG 16. Since the theme of the convention is really locating the different work that we do in terms of responses to SDG. So for the presentation of the updates, so we'll start with, okay, next slide. Okay, so the rationale of the revision, which I think we have heard this since 2023, and then we'll talk about the process that we do from consultations, different groups that we have consulted, and the work of the committee, which is a lot of the deliberations and constantly revising the papers, okay, that we are submitting to the legislator. So, and then the legislative engagement that we did, and then reviewing, looking again at the provisions in the revision, and then the next steps, okay. So for the rationale in the next slide, I think we've said this again, maybe for those who were not here in the last two convention. So the revisions, the work towards revising the law is to really allow the registered psychometricians, which will be like maybe in the next week will become 40,000 already. So to allow them independent practice separate from the supervision of registered psychologists. And then, and also like to expand the functions of the registered psychometrician, and then to address the concerns of limited mental health professionals by capitalizing and equipping registered psychometricians, which the committee is suggesting to rename them, and then to align the provisions with local, Asian, and global developments. During the day one, I think we have speakers from other countries, and then the ARUP's president, Adrian, to talk about how mental health is in the region, in ASEAN, so we can actually locate our own psych law in terms of what's happening in the ASEAN region. So in the next slide, just to review the process that the committee is doing. So we did a lot of consultations, which started in 2016. And then every consultation, there is a meeting of the committee. So constant deliberations, discussions. Sometimes a discussion could also be heated discussion. So to constantly also draft and redraft the amendments that we submit to the legislators. So just to review again, very quickly, so we did consultation in 2019. So the task force consultation, again, I always say this, so Dr. Ron was the one who initiated the review of the law. And then we consulted then different stakeholders, past president, past leaders of the PAP as well. And then in the next slide, the series of consultation that we did. So we did that in 2019. We submitted a report to PAP in 2020, I think during the pandemic, or 2021. PAP accepted the report. And then from then on, they said that we can actually look at the revision, and then the committee was formed. So in 2023, we had consultation with the Leadership Council of PAP, with the CHED Technical Panel, with PAP Division, the SIG. We presented this to PAPCon way back in 2019, in 2023, 2024, and now. So I think we can say that we did a lot of consultation. So no one can say, na, did you ever consult the members? So we have been consulting the members almost every year. So in the next slide, so these are our consultations with PRB, and then with the online consultation with the PAP Leadership Council. And then the next slide, PAPCon 2023 in Bicol, and then we did it again last year in Baguio. And then after all these consultations, like I said, the committee met, okay, there are several meetings, and then to constantly draft and redraft whatever, and review whatever we're submitting to the legislators. So so those are the different meetings. And then regarding the legislative engagement, I think we started in 2023. So we went to the office then of Senator Pimentel, and then in the House of Representatives with Kong Ana in 2023. And then we have several, okay, just continue the slides. Okay, and then meeting with Kong Ana, and then In May 2024, we actually have a meeting with the Office of Senator Bongo because Senator Go is the chair of the Health Committee. And then of the office also of Senator Gatchalian. So in the next slide, so last year, in terms of the Congress, so there were, it actually underwent several deliberation and then nagkaroon na nga ng number, House Bill 9611, and of course we know that everything will start again from zero. So we went through the first TWG meeting, approved on the committee level, but of course, we were not able to push through sa Senate. So this year, or still last year, so yeah, so these were the activities, initiatives in the House of Representatives. And then continuing, we also went to Senate to kind of like push further kung kakayanin nung 2024. Siyempre, hindi na siya umabot. And then we have now a new Congress. So this year, for the 20th Congress, okay, we went again and just to inform also the members that the choice of the senator that we will visit is actually dependent on the committee that they're heading. So we have to go to the Committee on Civil Service and Professional Regulation. So it's there already. Okay, we submitted the most recent revision. So now, I will just review the revisions. I think many of you have heard this. So for those of you who are hearing this for the first time, in the provisions, there are actually 4 major areas. So one is changes in terminology and expanded definitions. Second is the expanded functions of the registered psychometrician / registered psychology associate, creation of new plantilla, and then changes pertaining to the Professional Regulatory Board. Okay, in the next slide, again, there are several discussions already, so this is just a review. So in the law, current law, so it's psychologists. So the amendment is to change it to registered psychologist, and then for psychometrician, to rename it to registered psychology associate. So I hope we will not have questions about that. We have addressed all questions in terms of the change in the definition. So this is to basically to update and clarify the roles and responsibilities of the two type of professionals. Okay, and then there's also like a change in the definition of psychology, practice of psychology, psychologists, and registered psychologists. Okay, just to show you an example. Okay, so now currently it is psychologist, which is in our RA 10029, and then so the proposition is to change it psychologist to refer to person with postgraduate training psychology, and then those that are licensed will be called registered psychologists. So those of us who are licensed right now as RSI will still be RSI, but registered psychologists and not just psychologists. And psychologists is really all of us, whether we're licensed or not. Okay, and then in the next slide, there are expanded functions of psychologists. So it's not only assessment, intervention, but supervision is also added there, teaching of psychology, of subjects covered in the licensure exam is part of the function. And then all services and activities that registered psychology associate can do, and all psychology services that mental health associates or professionals can do. So those are the functions now of registered psychologists. And then in the next slide, It's changing the name from psychometrician to registered psychology associates, and then it's broadening also the functions of all registered psychometrician, what they can do. That will include provision of basic mental health screening and intervention in schools, workplaces, and communities, among others. So in the next slide, so there's a definition. So it's a registered psychology associate. So whatever is in the definition of the registered, the psychometrician. Okay. So, and then in the next slide, you will see there the different functions. But what we'd like to emphasize here also is that the registered psychology associate can function independently, so without supervision by the registered psychologist. And then in the next slide, you will see all of the different, the expanded functions. We have presented this already in several fora, so maybe just run through psychological screening, psychological evaluation of non-clinical populations for hiring, school admission, among others, intake interview for non-clinical populations. And by the way, in this particular revision, we already integrated all the comments in the Congress hearings. So some of these are actually not in what we have presented last year. So it's all non-clinical populations, need assessment for groups, psychosocial support, psychoeducation for mental health literacy, training, learning and development programs, and all other things that you can see in the slide, okay? So these are really expanded functions of registered psychology associate. Okay, so in the next slide, the other provision is creation of new plantilla position. So as we have in the consultation, there's a difficulty by employers who sought to hire psychometrician and psychologists in the past decade, and primarily there's a lack of plantilla position. That's also like a concern raised by many of us. So the amendment mandates the creation of plantilla position for registered psychologists and psychology associate in government sectors. So in terms of the changes, okay, so that one, so the creation of plantilla position. And then the other provision is changes pertaining to the professional regulatory board. Basically, the recommendation is to increase the number from 3 to 5. And of course, the term of office will change because of the change in the number. Yeah, and then here, the House of Representatives has recommended that we actually adopt language and practices used in other professional, the other professionals. So it's just changing some of the terms. And then in the next slide, okay, there. So the transitory provision. So in here last year, I think we presented it to respond to a particular issue, but I think the salary grade has been approved already. So a salary grade and item allocation review committee in coordination with relevant government agencies shall be established, although maybe we can again look at it in the actual hearing if that's necessary, because there's already like change in the salary grade. And then part of the transitory provision is the current PRB shall remain as interim members not later than 60 days after the effectivity of the amendment. And of course, our existing licenses and registration as registered psychologists and registered psychometrician shall remain in force until the respective expiration dates, and then after that, we will be called registered psychologists and then registered psychology associates. And everything about the law, okay, shall be construed to refer to registered psychology associate. So there's a lot of reference to the definition or to the term. So they will all be changed to registered psychology associate and registered psychologist. Okay, and then after that, I think last year when we presented, we said that there is like a suggestion to do grandfather clause. So again, after another set of meetings and deliberation, so the committee and PAP agreed on the non-reinstatement of the grandfather clause. So parang wala nang grandfather clause, so hindi ko alam kung matutuwa kayo o hindi. But the grandfather clause was designed as a temporary one-time provision to accommodate practitioners during the implementation of RA 10029. But since there are many of us already, RSI and registered psychometrician, so there's no need for a new grandfathering clause. Okay, so those are basically the provisions, and we have presented many of this last year. So right now, we have the recent activities. So during the 20th Congress, we've already met with Kong Ana. We have submitted the provision or these amendments according to how we have presented. So I think she has filed it, but there's another resolution also that was filed in the Congress. I think what they'll do is they're going to like harmonize the resolutions if there are differences. And then in the Senate, we've also like arranged meetings with some senators. So we're waiting for this PAPCon, and then we'll work again to present the revision to some senators, and we will be very purposive to like the choice of the senator is in relation to the committee that they are handling. And another plan also is to go back to the original, to two of the original authors of RA 10029 who are now back in Senate, Senator Lacson and Senator Ligarda. They're the authors of our original, the RA 10029. So that's an update, and the committee is also running a survey for psychology graduates and employers. We will be sharing you the QR code later. But just to acknowledge, okay, the members of the committee, okay, so these are like all mostly past president, Dr. Nino Mateo, Dr. Ron Resurrection, Dr. Gina, Dr. Alan, Dr. Glenn Garino, the current president, Ms. Joanne, Dr. Yot Morales, Ms. Florence, and of course, Ms. Faith. So I'd like, so that's the end of the presentation. So thank you all, and we welcome questions. So this is now the open forum. And for the questions, all the committee members down there will be answering the questions. So Doc Alan, Doc Gina are here, Dr. Ron Resurrection, and Ms. Joanne, Dr. Glenn, are you here? So would you like to go up? Okay, so we request all the committee members to go up and okay, wag hindi na raw. Okay, so they will answer there. Okay, if there are questions. So anyone who would like to ask, or natanong nyo na lahat ng tanong last year, okay na kayo dito, so ready for submission. Any clarification? So if you have questions, maybe you can introduce yourself and the institution where you belong.
Good morning, Ma'am Karing. So my name is Mel Tan. I'm from the University of the Philippines, Diliman, and also from Cardinal Santos and Higher Mind Clinical Institute. So I just wanted first to thank the committee for the hard work they did putting all of these together. I am sure it's not an easy task, and it's very clear a lot of thought was put into this revisions in the psych law. I just wanted to reiterate the same comment I made from the Baguio conference. Well, first of all, it's very clear from the last dialogue that a huge part of this impetus comes from really wanting some sort of professional pathway for our psychometricians. But of course, as professionals and psychologists, we also have to keep in our minds who's on the receiving end of these services, which are our clients, many of whom belong to a vulnerable population. So all steps moving forward, that should be on top of our mind in terms of now that if these revisions will be put in place, how do we prepare adequately, sufficiently these psychometricians for what lies ahead? Kasi in our profession, it's not just about economic stability. Our first priority should always be top quality client care. That's our ethical, legal, moral responsibility. So some of the things that came to mind, again, the terms could be very confusing for our clients. As things stand now in clinical practice, even distinguishing between psychiatrists and psychologists are confusing for many of our clients. The terms are too similar: registered psychology associate and registered psychologists. So I'm already predicting there will be a lot of confusion. These our clients won't be going through the letter of the law to say who can do which when. No, so there will be more confusion. So that's what I'm foreseeing. The second thing is there are many psychometricians. Now they will need training. What are the training sites that can provide the professional preparation to ensure client well-being, reduce risk or threats to safety in terms of, in the extreme form, malpractice, unethical decision-making in clinical practice? No, we can't police everyone. So now that we've created this law, we are obligated to provide sufficient training to prepare our psychometricians. Always top of mind, we should be focused on what's best for our clients, not economic stability, not advancing professionally, always what is best for our clients. So we have to aspire for the highest ethical standards, which is non-maleficence and beneficence. Minimize harm, maximize good. So that's my comment.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Mel, for the questions and bringing up those points, and they're really like very valid points. So I will respond quickly, and then I will pass and then the mic to the other members of the committee. My first top of the head answer. So when maybe. Faith, can you flash the functions of the registered psychology associate so that we can also like refer to them. So I think one of the things that have changed here in terms of our presentation last year, which was actually driven by the hearing, is like adding non-clinical population. So in many of the functions there, we specified for the registered psychology associate that these are for non-clinical population. So these are like random like response to the of Mel. So the other one is when we look at this particular functions, when we were drafting, redrafting, crafting all of this, we actually identified functions that are being done already currently by many registered, by many psychometricians, but they're not in the law. But when we look at the ground, what they're doing, so some of this they're already doing. And then maybe another response to that is certainly if this particular amendments have been carried out and we're already implementing, there will be a lot of retraining, retooling for the registered psychometrician. And likewise, I suppose there was a CHED meeting a while ago. All of this can also inform like curriculum or and then for CHED to consider. So Doc Alan, Doc Gina, who else? Doc Ron, would you like to add?
I think the person who asked the question understands that the law clearly defines different functions, no? I hope the person who asked the question also understands that her clients are not the clients of the registered psychology associates. The concern is the clients will be confused, right? And that is something that can be addressed so that there is also better public information. The alternative is still lack of qualified mental health professionals to address the wide range of mental health needs, not just the clinical. We want you to help us educate the public that there are different levels of mental health services that can be availed of. In the first day of our Congress, many of our plenary speakers highlighted how there are different levels of psychological services that need to be provided. There has been use of the term, we don't have enough. But the statistics referred to typically refer to the traditional Western model of individual services. But I think we have to acknowledge that many of the mental health services that are preventive, psychoeducational, screening, that do not involve interventions related to clinical cases are actually already being addressed by many members of our community and even other members. We have to acknowledge that. The UP Diliman recently conducted a workshop on decolonizing psychology. I hope part of that discussion is decolonizing our models of professional practice that is tied to competencies of individual clinical psychologists. We have to recognize that communities have ways of helping that have been effective, some more effective than others. We as a community have to begin constructing an efficient and effective system where people get different levels of psychological services. I understand the confusion. It is real. We need to work on that. But we cannot let the confusion prevent us from taking steps to provide access to different levels of psychological services. So to the person who asked your question, your concerns are legitimate. We hope you can work with us to provide solutions, because clearly gatekeeping is not helping our people. Help us find solutions to capacitate a larger segment of our community so that they can be also better servants to our population.
Okay. Thank you, Doc Alan, and thank you, Mel, for the raising those points. So I think it's really the challenge of really also working together, and how do we capacitate and retool the all of us, not only the registered psychology associate, but even registered psychologists. There's, yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Karing, and thank you to the committee for the revision of the law. I am Grace Brillantes Evangelista. I'm from Miriam College, and I also do community-based psychosocial support. I'm a clinical psychologist. I'm also a certified focusing-oriented therapist and expressive arts practitioner. And I like the expansion. I like the decolonization. Maybe my curiosity and my concern is about, if we expand so much, what would be the implication? Because we cannot put everything in one umbrella. There are definitely certain nuances in practices that people don't know. So if we call everyone psychologist, if we call everyone psychology associate, there might be damaging implications. Although we know that healing can never be monopolized by one discipline, there has to be clearer delineations which one is which. Maybe in the law, we can look into those nuances and include it in the conversation. Because we don't know, again, who will be the recipient of our services. And that should matter more. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doc Grace. Doc Alan would like to answer, but while Doc Alan is answering, can we flash the definition here?
Yeah, Grace, can you please look at the screen and tell us when we are expanding too much?
Sir,
This has been presented for many years. Can you be more specific about what provisions we are overextending? We are not telling everyone is going to be a psychological associate. Please be specific.
Sir, even this definition is an expanded version already.
Yeah, so which one is extensive? Which is overexpanded? You're saying overexpanding. What is overexpanding there?
Mahirap po. Sir, I'm
No,
not...
you're making a comment and saying that we have to be careful. This has been presented for 3 years. We have been conversing about this. You should have been able to think already about the dangerous implications you're referring to. Which provisions are overextending?
Sir, I'm actually commenting on, number one, what you said about, diba, in the community, there is no one profession working
Exactly,
for...
and that's why we're delineating here.
But
Which delineation is overextending?
So maybe
We're not, this has been there for 3 years.
Sir, this one is not what I was actually commenting specifically. It's actually the...
definition. Faith, can we go to the definition of psychologist, registered psychologist, and then the registered psychology associate?
Tell us what we should correct. This has been presented for 3 years now.
Sir,
Which provision is overextending?
I'm not even saying that this is incorrect. I'm just saying a curiosity and actually an implication that I'm looking at in terms of the number of services that will be provided in one particular area and how we name people as such. You mentioned about psychologists and the differentiation between psychologists and registered psychologists. So those things, I'm also working on the ground. So when we name people certain things, and you mentioned about public information. So ako, nanggagaling din po ako sa how people will be able to understand things. You have a very clear outline of what will be the provisions for the functions, but in the ground, it's not going to be that very clear.
Yeah, so how do we deal with that, Grace?
That's why
So
I'm saying...
the provision you're objecting is the definition of psychologist, right?
What I'm suggesting is that we clarify more, even actually narrow down certain things rather than expand them and cover more. I don't know the answer, sir. Actually, at this point, I don't know the answer. That's why I'm saying it's a curiosity and probable implications.
Yeah.
I am not arguing in any way
No,
that's
we
actually...
need your help here. We've been discussing this for 3 years.
And I'm sorry.
We need solutions. You've been thinking about this for 3 years.
I'm sorry, sir. That's my fault. I've not been part of this. Thank you.
Okay, so
Is your objection with the functions or the definitions?
I'm not clearly saying I'm objecting per se. I'm saying a curiosity that might come out. And I'm saying that looking at it in this more expanded version may actually have an implication on certain functions in the ground.
What are those implications you're worried about?
Implications
I
on
need you
specific...
to be specific so we can find solutions.
I'm speaking about specific competencies in certain specific functions. Marami po yun eh. So, clinical, community-based, industrial, across developmental stages.
That's not part of the law.
But the nuancing, I know that it's part of the IRR and not exactly on
It's
the
not
law.
even part of the RIR. The law doesn't specify anything about community psychology or industrial organizational psychology. That's beyond the law.
But you're covering all sectors when we talk
We're
about...
only regulating licensing of professional psychologists.
You mentioned earlier that psychologists and registered psychologists are different.
I did not mention that. That's
I mean,
in the law.
there was that part of the law. Sir, ano lang, it's really...
Yes, that is part of the law.
Yeah.
You don't, I know there is confusion about psychologists who are not registered psychologists, right?
There is.
Yes. So, is your problem with the definition of a psychologist that is not a registered psychologist?
Actually po, my problem is the definition and the different functions.
Be specific.
I see a lot of functions that encompass several services among the professionals.
Yeah.
So that if I'm a registered psychologist, I can do all of these things, but it doesn't equate to actual competencies. So actually, that is a curiosity lang po, and that may be something, because we are revising the law, so maybe those things can be included when you're
Be
still
more
revising.
so Grace, you're thinking the law should specify the competencies for an organizational psychologist, for a community psychologist.
That would be interesting, sir.
That is in the discussion of Dr. Kwe next session about the continuing career progression. For 20 years, we have discussed this already, whether we want psychology to follow the engineering model where every specialization takes a different licensure exam. But the community decided we were closer to the medical model where we license general psychology professionals, and it's in the career progression where we will try to develop competencies in the specific areas. Are you now proposing we move away from that model?
I don't have the answer now, sir.
Okay.
Alan.
Yeah. So maybe just to cut the discussion on that. So I think in term, Doc Grace, you mentioned about the competencies, no? That's not part of the law. And I'd like also to maybe mention that I think those points that have been raised both by Doc Mel and by Doc Grace now have been actually discussed also in the committee. What do we do about it? But in the amendments to the law, so we need to stick with our existing RA 10029, and how can we actually improve that particular law, and then mindful of the rationale that we actually mentioned a while ago in terms of like number one, it's really like the problem that we are encountering with the work of the registered psychometrician right now. So in terms of competences, like what I said and what Dr. Alan mentioned, it will not be included in the law, but there are other initiatives that we can do as a community to actually make sure that people develop all these competences. So these are not, this may not be here in the law, but we can work towards how do we develop all those competences. So the call for us to be working together on this, but if we keep on like deviating and then changing all of this, we will never get these amendments passed also. So we're not rushing it. If you notice, since this has been since 2019, so we'd like to put all those inputs, but not all inputs can actually be included in the law. So we may need to take note of all of this and how do we address them eventually when the law is being implemented. So those are valid points that we need to address maybe when we're already like implementing all these amendments. And there will be a lot of work that needs to be done after this, after the law. But I think we're all taking note of all of them. We are taking note, okay, of all of these comments. Are there other comments or maybe we'd like to hear comments from the Registered Psychology Associate as well? Okay, so, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, Doc Divine, go.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Ring. I'm Divine Love Salvador from the University of the Philippines, Diliman. So I think for me, I can speak from the standpoint of the University of the Philippines actually trying very hard to input into the psychology law revisions via the attempts we've made to cooperate with the PAP task force, as well as directly engaging the Congress when we presented to the proposed revisions to the Congress. I've always maintained in my position as the one representing my university that we have no disagreement, and in fact, we support and encourage the strengthening of our profession. I think what I find curious, for example, and I can't I can't figure out why exactly. So when I was reading the rationale for some of the revisions, specifically about the expanded functions for the RPA, I have no quarrel with the distinction, by the way, between a psychologist and a registered psychologist. I think we made it known to the PAP committee because we strongly believe that our profession is both an academic discipline and a profession. And there are psychologists who do research, there are psychologists who do practice, there are psychologists like myself who do both and are committed to both. And we would support any attempts to clarify, but also not make an artificial dichotomy between those functions. To the question of the expanded functions and the extent to which clinical psychologists like me and my colleagues could comment. All right. I think what worries us is that often there seems to be an assumption that some of those functions are easy to do. So you can say that, of course, right now the term is RPM, so I'll use that term. An RPM can actually do psychological first aid, those needs assessment, etc., etc. Technically, because we work in multidisciplinary contexts, even non-RPMs can do those functions. That's not what is at issue with us. What is at issue for us is often we make light of the capacity to do risk assessment and risk screening, behavioral assessment, and then we assume that when we have qualified, we have issued a qualifier, it's for non-clinical populations, or if it's for communities, it is as if anybody with a bachelor's in psychology will be well prepared to encounter a situation, unsupervised, in which I am simply doing risk assessment and I am suddenly faced with somebody struggling so hard and suffering so hard, and it looks to me they need professional work. What do I do in that instance? And somebody with a bachelor's degree in psychology, no matter how well trained and committed, simply will struggle in that situation if they do not have supervision. That is why we have been pushing to make sure what we commit to as an organization is the strengthening of the supervising psychologist ranks. So I have to say personally, when I read the rationale, my colleague Grace talked about curiosity. I have to be honest that I was surprised that we seem to prioritize independent practice of RPM. I'm worried about, and that is what we're saying, we're worried about the implications of that. We are very much aware, we are not clinical psychologists in ivory towers. Many of us work with communities. So we are aware that there are areas in the Philippines with no supervising psychologists. And so to us, that is the more important issue to address, is how do you strengthen the supervision for those RPMs who are left, unfortunately, to do work virtually unsupervised. So I was thinking earlier of possible solutions. I don't know that it inputs into the law, but its possible solutions could be to mandate ourselves.
Can you shorten it, ma'am? Para
yes, this needs to be said.
Sige po. 1 minute, and then we can let the person answer.
You have to listen to us, and I have a last point.
Go ahead.
So we have to mandate ourselves to work with HEIs in each area, for example, if you have REPMs in your area, can't the HEIs, as public service, create supervision programs to guide the RPMs? So this is the kind of example of a solution that you could welcome from clinical psychologists like us. So this brings me to the last point. I do not appreciate, and I'm very much offended by the arrogant and defensive stance that you have taken, Dr. Bernardo. You call yourself a committee, you talk about consulting with us, but anytime somebody comes up with a question, even something as gently framed as a curiosity or a reminder to think about our values as a profession, what do? You engage us in intellectual combat. You talk about,
I will
and you call
reply.
that consultation.
Yes, thank you very much, ma'am.
That is unfair.
Yes, ma'am. Thank
And
you.
you make imputations about my profession and my university. That is profoundly unfair.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
I
Go ahead.
I acknowledge Divine's point, and I apologize for my belligerence. I have to call attention, though, to mistaken assumptions about the proposals regarding this. We do not assume that these are functions that just anybody can do. That's why there is still competencies defined. That is why there is still examination. Maybe we should also question our assumptions about what bachelor's degree holders can do. We are all operating perhaps on misapprehensions about our assumptions. I apologize that I am very belligerent and aggressive. But we are doing this with a very specific purpose, and we're doing a lot of crosstalk. At this point, we want solutions. When Divine suggested, this very specific issue of Divine is that there are functions that need supervision. Then let's specify those functions. We can amend the proposal so that these functions can be done without supervision, but certain functions can be done with supervision. My belligerence is that at this point, we need solutions. I am glad that Divine already affirmed the common ground. But if the common ground begins always being undermined, we will not move forward. And I truly apologize. I am extremely impatient. I know my apology will not be accepted. But I think as a community, we take steps. Give us solutions. Give us specifics. And the board knows this. We have gotten suggestions that were easily incorporated. That the last round, there were.
Thank you, Dr. Alan. I'm going to give it to Dr. Karing.
Doc Grace, sorry, because Doc Miriam is here. We will talk to you, but Doc Miriam is here. But
1 minute, is that okay? Thank you, Sir Alan, for saying that. Number 2, I'm not assuming anything. Number 3, I was just saying curiosity and implication. And I was saying nuances that can be part of the conversation. So I'm actually offering a solution, not an objection. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Grace. Dr. Karing, you have
okay,
the floor.
so just to end, I think this particular conversation just shows that we are all invested in this law. So we can please help us, as Doc Alan also pointed, suggest, recommend solutions. You can email us, you can email me, you can email PAP, and then there's still a lot of time to consolidate all of the points that have been raised. So thank you everyone for the interest, and we welcome all suggestions, and we keep on drafting, redrafting, and deliberating on all of this. So thank you everyone.
I will just introduce the next speaker. Okay. I have no other purpose to be here. Thank you, everyone. But who doesn't know our next speaker anyway? I just have a few things. Maybe many of us might be interested to find out. Our next speaker, somebody we all know, is the country's first registered and licensed psychologist. She has many, many years of progressively responsible professional experience in teaching, research, and psychological practice spanning 5 specialty areas: clinical, counseling, assessment, addiction, and industrial organizational psychology. She was awarded in 2012 the Most Outstanding Professional of the Year in the field of counseling by the Foundation of Outstanding Professionals and the Professional Regulation Commission. Outside of her current official designation as chair of the Professional Regulatory Board of Psychology at the PRC, our speaker is a strong advocate of mental health and an internationally known trainer for the treatment and recovery of people suffering from substance use disorder. Without having to further read everything that I have, may I now present our next speaker, the Honorable Miriam Cue of the Professional Regulatory Board of Psychology, the chair of the PRB of Psychology.
Good morning, esteemed colleagues, fellow professionals, and friends in psychology. It is both humbling and deeply inspiring to stand before you at the close of this historic joint conference of the ASEAN Regional Union of Psychological Societies, led by President Adrian To, and the Psychological Association of the Philippines with our president, Dr. Glenn Glarino. This gathering, to me, marks more than a milestone. It is a convergence of minds and missions. We are, of course, honored by the presence of esteemed psychologists, scholars, and thought leaders from across the country. I'd like to cite a few of my mentors, Dr. Rosemary Salazar, Dr. Alan Bernardo, and Dr. Villar, and thanks to you, okay? And also our valued colleagues from the ARUPs, okay? And of course, distinguished guests from the American Psychological Association, especially those from the International Learning Partnership Exchange, led by Dr. Amanda Clinton. Okay. Your participation in this joint conference underscores the global solidarity and shared purpose that defines our profession. To stand before this constellation of minds is an honor, and I sure hope that we are of the same mindset, that we are not just here as psychologists, we are builders of human understanding, the shaping of a science that transcends borders and transforms lives. As we gather at the close of this conference, let us not only reflect, but reimagine in this moment. Let us renew our commitment to collaboration, innovation, and ethical leadership. Notwithstanding, let me start to ask this question, to pose this question for this particular session to all of us. What will the future of psychology look like? And perhaps a deeper one, what role will each and every one of us play in shaping that future? And as a septuagenarian like me, I'd like to ask this question: what kind of impact will we leave behind? Okay, so perhaps the most meaningful starting point to consider for this particular talk on the shaping of professional psychology is to consider the key drivers shaping the future of psychology, the major forces that are redefining how our profession evolves. These forces influence not only how we practice, but how we respond to global challenges, how we innovate in the face of complexity, and how we continue to uphold our vital role in society. As the world becomes more interconnected and more uncertain, psychology must remain agile, evidence-based, and ethically grounded. We must ask what trends are emerging, what technologies are transforming our methods, and what cultural shifts are reshaping the needs of the populations we now serve. Understanding these drivers is not just an academic exercise. It is a strategic imperative. It empowers us to lead with foresight, to adapt with integrity, to ensure that our science remains a force for healing, equity, and human flourishing. So let me focus on the key drivers of shaping the future of psychology. I'd like to start with the changing landscape of human experience. Globalization, diversity, migration, aging populations, climate anxiety, post-pandemic realities. Okay? Then we have technology as the driving force in the innovation of our professional practice, like telepsychology, AI in assessment, VR, virtual realities in therapy, digital mental health applications. Third driver, of course, are the regulatory frameworks, okay, and regulatory and ethical frameworks, licensure laws, codes of ethics, global competency standards, ensuring safe, competent, and ethical practice. And fourth force is the shaping of social and cultural norms, the growing recognition of inclusivity, social justice, indigenous psychologies, and mental health destigmatization. Psychology must remain culturally responsive. And of course, the fifth force would be globalization and competence development. So with this, I will also include in my discussion the international project on competence in psychology, cross-border research, and the mobility of professionals. This global collaboration, international mobility, pushes psychology towards harmonized standards, global relevance, and local adaptation. So we now speak of glocalization in our practice. So first, let me focus, please, it's ahead. Let me focus first on the changing landscape in more detail. We live in an era of rapid revolutionary transformation where technology is not only reshaping how people think, feel, and connect, but also redefining the very fabric of human relationships, human experience, and identity. Paradoxically, however, even as digital networks expand our reach, loneliness and disconnection quietly persist, reminding us that genuine human presence and belonging remain irreplaceable. So amidst these sweeping changes, technological, social, cultural, environmental, okay, is the shaping of how humans live, relate, and make meaning of their experiences. So I repeat, this includes the impact of digital and technological renovation, artificial intelligence and all that, global interconnectedness, climate and environmental urgency, redefining human flourishing. Okay? So today, in essence, we say that today's world is undergoing profound transformation, okay, in all these areas. And this is reshaping how humans live, connect, and make meaning. Artificial intelligence, automation, and biotechnology are redefining our understanding of work. Many of my clients who are still high school students easily go check ChatGPT or Perplexity or Google to check on their specific, to diagnose their specific issues. And this diagnosis without guidance define their identity. Very sad. The digital realm blurs the line between physical and virtual life, recreating new forms of identity and influence, while the rapid spread of information and misinformation challenges our grasp of truth, trust, and realities. At the same time, global interconnectedness has woven economies, cultures, and crises into a shared fabric where migration and digital platforms foster hybrid identities and cultural exchange. Climate change and ecological pressures are no longer distant concerns, but lived realities in the now. Oh, yesterday we just had the super typhoon, okay, fueling both anxiety and collective action. And amid all this, the pursuit of mental health and well-being has emerged as a central measure of progress as people seek deeper balance and authenticity in their lives. The truth is this: the human experience itself is evolving before our eyes, and so must psychology. The second driving force I'd like to expound further is technology driving innovation in professional practice. The future of professional psychology is being shaped by AI, advanced technologies, and digital innovations in profound and multifaceted ways. Let me give you a breakdown of these forces transforming the field. Artificial intelligence, therapeutic support tools, AI-powered chatbots, and virtual therapies are making mental health support more accessible and affordable. They offer immediate responses, mood tracking, and even crisis intervention in some cases. But some things are also compromised. Machine learning enables psychologists to analyze massive databases, data sets, uncover patterns in behavior, and refine treatment approaches based on predictive analytics. My son, who is in the IT world, showed this in particular to me. I was amazed, overwhelmed, but somehow I said, we definitely need training on the impact of technology in our practice. Data-driven insights. Training and education, how is it impacted by technology? AI is now being used to simulate therapy sessions, helping students and professionals practice interventions and improve their diagnostic skills. Advanced technologies like our wearable and biofeedback, devices that monitor heart rate, sleep, and stress levels, provide real-time data. Our smart watches can do that, enhancing personalized care and early intervention if discussed with a psychologist. Neurotechnology and brain imaging innovations in this area, which are brain-computer-based interfaces, are deepening our understanding of cognition, emotion, and mental disorders. Telepsychology, which we are all familiar with, virtual therapy platforms have expanded access to care, especially in remote or undeserved areas, and even across jurisdictions. But how many of us mind the laws and ethical standards that govern telepsychology? This shift also challenges us psychologists to adapt our methods to digital environments. Digital record keeping and automation. Okay, so my son tried to prepare to work out an application I can use in therapy where everything is encrypted, where I can have my own virtual secretary, and where my case notes can be digitalized. So AI tools, streamline administrative tasks, like transcription and scheduling, freeing up time for clinicians and focus on client care. So it's very helpful because even those issues which you failed to discuss in a particular session will be highlighted by the program for the next session, and things will be summarized. That's how things are. But amidst all this are the ethical and professional challenges. Privacy and consent. As more sensitive data is collected and stored digitally, psychologists must navigate complex issues around data security and informed consent. AI systems can inadvertently perpetuate biases, making ethical oversight and inclusive design critical. So, human connection, while technology can supplement therapy, it cannot replace empathy. Looking ahead, we have dream decoding and voice analysis. Emerging tools may help decode dreams or internal voices, offering new avenues for treating PTSD and schizophrenia. We also have hybrid models of care. The future likely involves a blend of human-led therapy supported by AI tools, enhancing reach and effectiveness without sacrificing compassion. So professional psychology is entering a new era, one where technology augments human expertise rather than replace it. The key lies in thoughtful integration, ethical vigilance, and a commitment to ethical practice. This actually reminds me of what Dr. Alan mentioned in one of our oath-taking ceremonies about professional citizenship. You remember? Okay. So, the key lies in thoughtful integration, ethical vigilance, and commitment to ethical practice. The third driver are the frameworks, the regulatory frameworks, and how they shape the future of professional psychology. Like it or not, we are bounded by rules, legislations, ethical standards, and practices. Regulatory frameworks are the backbone of professional psychology. They define the scope, standards, and safeguards that ensure that the discipline remains ethical, credible, and responsive to evolving human needs. As the world changes through technological innovation, shifting societal norms, and global crisis, these frameworks must also evolve. That's why we have to look into amendments, okay? So among the issues we need to look into where the regulatory frameworks are concerned would be defining professional boundaries. Regulation such as licensure laws, mental health acts, that's 11036, and there's the Well-Being Act of Basic Education, I think that's 12020, okay? So all this establish who are qualified to practice psychology and what services they are legally permitted to offer. This protects the public from unqualified or unethical practice. It ensures that psychological services are delivered by trained professionals who meet rigorous educational and clinical standards. Examples include our professional regulatory board, mental health acts, and scope of practice legislation. So what's the impact of this on the future? As psychology expands into digital platforms, cross-border care, and interdisciplinary roles, regulatory bodies must redefine boundaries to accommodate new modalities without compromising safety or quality. I remember the time we worked with the Arabs on the mutual recognition of professional qualifications. So we had to look into the details carefully. Second, ensuring ethical standards. Codes of ethics, professional conduct guide psychologists in making responsible, compassionate, and culturally sensitive decisions. Thank you. Okay. So impact on the future. Emerging contexts such as AI-assisted therapy, virtual reality interventions, and data-driven diagnostics require updated ethical guidelines. Regulators must anticipate risks like algorithm bias, digital privacy breaches, and the erosion of human empathy in tech-medicated care-driven diagnostics. So all this require updated ethical guidelines. So I think it's about time we work with the PAP on the updates of our code of ethics. And with you, of course. Looking ahead, regulatory frameworks are not static. They are living systems that must adapt to the changing landscape of human experience and technological advancement. The changing landscape of human experience, okay? They shape how psychology is taught, practiced, and perceived. They influence international collaboration, specialization, and public trust. And most importantly, they ensure that psychology continues to serve humanity with integrity, relevance, and compassion. So in essence, regulatory frameworks act as the foundation and compass of psychology's future, ensuring public trust, professional integrity, evolving competencies, and responsiveness to social change. Okay. It is in this context where I would request all of you to be cautious with what you post on social media, because they do not just reflect your person, but the professional identity of the profession itself. Shifting social and cultural norms. Social and cultural norms are the shared expectations, values, and behaviors that guide how people interact within a society or group. When these norms shift, it means that what is considered normal, acceptable, or ideal is changing, often due to globalization and digital connectivity, social movements like the LGBTQ, racial justice, gender equality, generational changes in situations and priorities. We now have the generation Alpha who are actually challenging past generations. Technological advances that reshape communities and identity. How is this shaping the future of psychology? Shifting norms and transformative psychology are transforming psychology in several key ways. One is on broadening definitions of mental health, emphasis on cultural competence and humility, inclusive and decolonized practices, changing gender, sexuality, neurodiversity, and racial identity are now seen as fluid and complex. And of course, digital and global influence, especially with online communication. In essence, social and cultural shifts are pushing psychology to become more inclusive, equity-focused, and identity-affirming. It is pushing psychology to become more pluralistic, embracing indigenous and local psychologies, and more accessible response to the problems of everyday life, like destigmatization and integrated care. So in short, psychology's future will be culturally grounded, socially responsive, and globally connected. Together, these shifts are shaping a psychology that is more culturally grounded, more socially responsive, and globally connected. This is the psychology of the future. And now, on the international collaboration and competences in psychology. So we respect ethical differences, but apply psychological principles in ways that are globally relevant. So we speak in here of unified standards and initiatives like the International Project on Competence in Psychology, and cross-cultural insights like collaboration enriches psychology theory by integrating perspectives from diverse societies, making research more inclusive and applicable. Psychologists are increasingly addressing transnational issues, mental health in displaced populations, trauma recovery in conflict zones, and digital well-being across cultures. Together, international collaboration and competences are transforming psychology into a truly global science, one that not only understands humanity, but uplifts human lives. So when we speak of international collaboration and competence in psychology, we refer to psychologists, countless working across countries working together, shaping research, practice, and insights to address global challenges. It involves joint studies, cross-cultural projects, and the creation of knowledge that reflects diverse human experiences. International competence is the ability of psychologists to work effectively across cultures. It includes understanding of cultural context, respecting ethical differences. And now, to the, sorry, this is way ahead, pillars of shaping the future. One is innovation in practice. Digital platforms, telepsychology, AI-assisted even virtual reality therapy. These are not distant possibilities. They are present realities. Yet, innovation must remain grounded in science and cultural relevance. We must adapt methods to the lived context of our people and balance technological innovation with ethical responsibility, ensuring that practice never comes at the expense of human dignity. Advocacy and leadership. We are not just clinicians, educators, researchers, or consultants. We are thought leaders. Our profession must have a seat in the table where policies are crafted. We should have been represented in the mental health law. Congressman requested me actually to make amendments on the mental health law. And one of the things I introduced is the need for assessment, psychological assessment, and the need for psychometricians to handle this. Okay, with crucial, ensuring that progress never comes at the expense of human dignity. So we say that with mental health legislation, workplace wellness, educational reforms, this demand our knowledge and our presence. And then capacity building and mentorship. This is very crucial. The future will belong to the next generation of psychologists we mentor today. Let us invest in their competence, their values, and their courage. Let us model ethical leadership in a spirit of collaboration across disciplines. And our impact should go beyond individual healing. It must ripple outward from individual lives where healing and growth happen to communities where resilience and prevention take root, and to society where inclusion, equity, and well-being become norms. Now, in this context, let me introduce the IPCP. So, this is the International Project for Competence in Psychology, for those who are not yet familiar with it. Although we adopted, the Philippines actually was the pioneering country who adopted the IPCP in a resolution as part of our implementing rules and regulations under RA 129. This was adopted in 2017 after the declaration of the Universal International Declaration on Core Competences in Psychology towards more significant impact. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is a story of the defined aim, dedicated people, and international cooperation, which started in 2010. In 2015, this took root because of the need to work out international standards to support licensure and regulation across countries. So why does the IPCP matter in today's world? As norms shift, IPCP provides a unifying framework to help psychologists adapt to cultural diversity and global mental health needs, maintain professional integrity across different regulatory systems, embrace inclusive, decolonized, and socially aware practices, and respond to technological disruption and digital media health trends. So the key features include competency-based model, next slides please, which focus on what psychology should know and be able to do, not just our credentials, okay? Iterative development, built through workshops, consultations, and feedback from a global reference, starting with 275 professionals from 77 countries. And we now speak of shaping the future of psychology. It was actually Dr. Alan who actually introduced me to the IPCP project network sometime in 2014. That's why I managed to join the meetings, okay? So IPCP is more than a checklist, okay? It's a vision for the future of psychology. It empowers us professionals to work across borders with shared standards, address systemic inequities in mental health, foster trust and accountability in a rapidly changing world. And then we now have a toolkit which we updated and finalized in our Cyprus meeting only 2 months ago. Dr. Amanda Clinton was also there. So the IPCP continues to evolve with new resources and updates planned for 2026 presentation in Milan. Okay. Now, let's discuss more about the IPCP. Please, forward, please. Okay, so let me just discuss the guidelines for the declaration, for the application of the declaration. So basically, the IPCP project defines the common standards that frame the core competencies in psychology. The core, meaning these are the competences which every practicing psychologist should possess, okay? And in 2015, it was adopted by the International Association of Applied Psychology and the International Union of Psychological Science. This was signed during the ICP of 2016 in Japan, and it has become the International Declaration on Core Competences in Professional Psychology. So the declaration, okay, has 4 parts. The introduction, it has a glossary of terms to help us understand and come up with a common language and common understanding across international audiences. Then we have the preamble, which describes the purpose, scope, and potential applications of the declaration. And now, the core competences in professional psychology. Forward, please. Okay. So, forward, please. Okay. So, the declaration proper has 3 main parts: psychological knowledge and skills underpinning the core competences. So, it relates to knowledge and skills, both general and specific. General for general psychology practice, and specific to the different specializations. 2, it also defines the professional behavior competences. This relates to general professional conduct, ethically and professionalism, evidence-based practice, self-reflection, and cultural competence. So it speaks of our conduct, professional conduct as psychologists. And then our professional activities, competences, which include goal setting, assessment and evaluation, intervention, and reporting. These are all covered by our law. Okay, next slide, please. So for psychological knowledge and skills underpinning the core competences, so we say the psychologist must possess the necessary knowledge, foundational knowledge of psychological concepts, constructs, theories, methods, and practice to support competence. And then into specialized knowledge. Okay, the psychologist must also possess the necessary skills, basic to support competence, and the specialized skills to operate in one's own areas of psychological practice to support competence. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, professional behavior competences refers to the application of relevant ethics codes, adherence to relevant laws and rules, and the resolution of ethical dilemmas. So, acts professionally, meaning the psychologist follows accepted best practice, maintains competence, and operates inside boundaries of competence. So you cannot jump to another area of specialization without the necessary training and supervision. Consults peers, makes referrals when needed. And then ER, that is relating appropriately to clients and others, meaning appropriate working relationships with clients, with others, and with colleagues. Okay, next slide, please. And then this is working with diversity, meaning the psychologist works with diversity across cultures and generations and demonstrates cultural competence. So knowledge and understanding of the historical, political, social, and cultural context of clients. Cultural humility respects diversity, is inclusive to all forms of diversity. In Cyprus, we had a full discussion on cultural competence because it was apparently cultural competence overlaps with cultural working with diversity. So it is up to a particular locale or culture to further look into the specific needs of that culture. So the psychologist operates as an evidence-based practitioner, adopts an evidence-based orientation, consults research to inform practice, and recognizes the limitations of the available evidence. And we are also expected to reflect on our own work, to evaluate our own efficacy, to reflect on improvement, validate, and of course, validate our reflections with peers and mentors or supervisors. And then lastly, we have, next slide please, professional activities. So we are expected to set relevant goals based on needs analysis and then align these goals, conduct psychological assessment and evaluations, identify needs, selects or develops, delivers assessments and evaluations, and then conduct psychological interventions, plans and carries out psychological interventions, designs and develops and evaluates its usefulness. And lastly, communicating effectively and appropriately. We are expected to communicate with diverse audiences, provide relevant and clear feedback, okay, consider a report, provide report and guidance to clients, provide information and on psychological matters to relevant audiences. And then, so that is basically the Universal Declaration of Core Competences in Psychology. We made some amendments because of technology-mediated psychological service, the increasing use of and employment of digitalization, including its influence on psychological practice, has made understanding of digital communication and digital service delivery very crucial. So at this point, we do not have a code of ethics for teletherapy in the Philippines. So we are using the code of ethics of the APA, the guidelines, okay? American Psychological Association. So the specific elements, we expect our psychologists to demonstrate initial and continuing proficiency in digital tools to set relevant goals, conduct psychological assessment, intervention, and to communicate. At one point, Dr. Perez and I went to a particular facility, and they said, the facility said we should not expect them because they're only using digital tools for psychological services delivery. And so we said, that is not an exemption. The more we should look into this to ensure that the test instruments you are using are also normed, okay? Normed according to the nature of your clientele and your method, and so too for teletherapy. Anyway, we never managed to get into the facility, but after a year, they asked us to return because they said they were already prepared, including their certificates of training. So, second competence is adherence to ethical standards in digital service environment by ensuring confidentiality, data security, and awareness of limitations and misuse of information. So one of the ethical, most critical issues in the use of digital technology is confidentiality and security breaches. And then D3 evaluates and improves the effectiveness of the psychologist's use of the digital services through evidence-based approaches and reflective practice. Next slide, please. And then, okay, there was an issue on this because IO psychologists were saying that supervision is only for the clinical psychologists, and that IO psychologists do not really need supervision. But the point was, before you specialize, you go into general practice, which would require supervision regardless of your specialization. This became a heated debate, and we ended up with a neutral term, developing others, as fundamental to the cultivation of future psychologists. Next slide, please. This includes the design implementation and documentation of professional development processes tailored to the needs of the recipients, meaning the interns and psychology students, applies evidence-based practices and theoretical frameworks to enhance the professional development of recipients. We had to use the term recipients because IO does not call their, they don't have patients, but organizational clients. And then evaluates the performance of recipients against clear criteria to foster growth and competence, and then providing guidance and constructive feedback. So basically, these are the competences required of those who will provide supervision. Okay, so there are definitions in the IPCP. Okay, please move forward. And then again, those are the terms. Additional definitions we added to the working document. And then, next slide, please. So, who is the declaration for? It's for everyone. The declaration does not impose a rule or it does not pressure anyone, but it assists educators, help regulators, inform practitioners, and support policymakers. So it is a step forward towards a common international framework for practicing psychology. Next. Now, can the core competences be expanded? Yes. A competence, okay, is the possession of which is critical to the overall ability of a psychologist to practice to an acceptable professional standard. So, core competences, I would like to underscore this to those who are in professional psychology practice, are expected to be possessed by all those who claim competence in professional practice. Okay. But additions can also be made as we move up as we advance our careers to specific pathways. So that can the core competences be adopted? Yes, and they should be adapted to fit the local context and local needs. So the declaration is universal, but it should be adapted to fit our local needs. It's like specific operation of some competences in some countries. Okay, forward please. So the toolkit explains how the declaration is applied by educators, practitioners, regulators, policymakers, and the public. Okay? Can we move? So for educators, these are the potential uses. Educators and training providers. So it should define the curriculum development, teaching standards, assessment tools, and accreditation. For psychologists and practitioners, okay, the IPCP project should, okay, guide professional development, self-assessment, ethical benchmarks, and global mobility. For regulators, it should define the licensing standards, quality assurance, policy development, and disciplinary actions. To policymakers, the IPCP provides evidence-based policy for funding priorities, public health integration, and international collaboration. And for the public, okay, we are accountable to the public. So, awareness of their own rights, informed choices in care, advocacy for quality, reducing stigma. So we are empowering our clients. So this is the current work. I represent the Philippines, okay, the work group. Amanda is also representing the US. Next slide, please. So this is now the call to action. But prior to that, let me explain specifically the implications of the IPCP to education, regulation, career, specialization, and career pathways, and international mobility. So the declaration serves as a roadmap for aligning psychology education with global standards. So it ensures that curricula are updated and competency-based, teaching practices are benchmarked internationally, and student learning is assessed with valid tools. By guiding accreditation processes, it also strengthens the credibility and global recognition of psychology programs, preparing graduates to practice in diverse contexts and countries. Now, for regulators, the declaration provides regulators with a clear framework to uphold professional standards in psychology. It supports licensing and certification processes, guides quality assurance mechanisms, and informs the development of regulatory policies aligned with international norms. It also offers a solid reference for disciplinary actions. Unfortunately, I understand that there are many complaints, ethical complaints submitted to the PAP which have not been endorsed to the board. So, because the PAP is a professional regulation, a private organization, it cannot really impose the sanctions. Okay? It informs the development of regulatory policies aligned with international norms. It also offers a solid reference for disciplinary actions, ensuring that accountability and competence remain at the core of professional practice. That is why we are in agreement with the PAP's proposal to expand the number of board members, because it's just me right now and Dr. Perez, and we can only do so much. The declaration guides policymakers in shaping mental health and psychology-related policies based on internationally recognized standards. It helps them identify integrating psychological competence into public health initiatives. It promotes community well-being. It also provides a common framework for international collaboration, making cross-country efforts more consistent and effective. And now, for use in specialization and career pathways, which is part of this presentation, defining the IPCP helps define core and advanced competencies with a clear baseline of general competencies from which advanced or specialized competences can be developed, say in clinical psychology, counseling psychology, IO psychology, forensic psychology, if ever we go into that. It helps in career mapping by outlining stages in a psychologist's career, entry-level practice, specialization, and advanced expertise anchored on global benchmarks. It also provides guidance for training and certification. The framework can guide the design of specialization programs and professional certifications, ensuring consistency across practice. That's why this was used as our reference framework when we worked out the MRPQ with other countries under the AROPS. Okay, so it's for its implications in career progression. I would say it provides clarity and structure, credibility and recognition, basis for lifelong learning, and also global opportunities. So essentially, the IPCP helps ensure that career progression in psychology is structured, credible, and globally relevant, while supporting the growth of specialization programs that meet both local needs and international standards. And now for the issue of mobility, I would say the IPCP provides a shared framework for a common language of the competencies. It also serves as the international benchmark against which national training, licensing, and practice requirements can be compared. It's like the Washington Accord of engineering. And for mutual recognition, I would say it facilitates the recognition of qualifications and licenses across borders by applying professional expectations. So for professional mobility, okay, we are expected to collaborate with our counterparts in other countries for cross-border collaboration to support multicultural, multinational projects. So hence the need for the harmonization of standards which the IPC presents. In short, the IPCP removes barriers, builds trust across systems, and enables psychologists to move and work globally with recognized competences. And now in closing, I return to our question, what will the future of psychology look like? Professional psychology now stands at a pivotal crossroad. As human needs grow more complex and multidimensional, our discipline, our profession must evolve, not only to address mental health, but to confront ethical, cultural, and systemic challenges on a global scale. We are called to integrate science with compassion, to navigate digital spaces responsibly, to respond to diverse communities, and promote human flourishing amid uncertainty. It demands that we reimage education, regulation, specialization, and international collaboration so that psychology remains relevant, responsive, and transformative in a world where it means to be human, is itself being redefined right now. So in essence, today's world compresses time, collapses distance, and multiplies possibility. So human experience is shifting from stability to fluidity, demanding new ways of thinking, relating, and responding. So we psychologists must now evolve in our response, ways of thinking. And as we conclude this gathering, let me carry forward not only the insights we have exchanged throughout this conference, but the spirit of connection that brought us together in this venue. In a world shaped by complexity and change, psychology is evolving fast, becoming more culturally grounded, socially responsive, and globally connected. Through international collaboration and mobility, we are building bridges across borders, enriching our understanding and expanding our reach. We are not merely advancing a profession right now. We are shaping a future where psychology becomes a shared language of human understanding, one that speaks to the needs of a changing world and the promise of a more compassionate tomorrow. So let me end with this just one-liner. Let this be our legacy. Not only knowledge, but vision. Not only progress, but purpose. Thank you and good day.
Ganda.
Gutom na. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Miriam Cue, for, well, closing our event, no? And because we already are past our closing, I don't know if we can still entertain questions. So maybe, do we have maybe one question, or are we going to release Dr. Cue now?
Release, they're hungry.
Dr. Miriam Cue. All right, it seems that everyone is
Hungry.
somehow satisfied. All right. So thank you, ma'am, for your very comprehensive. It's very nice that we are closing our event with these reminders coming from our PRB Chair of Psychology. And I was assigned to close the event, so we thank all of you for sharing the past 3 or 4 days with us, our growing community of professional psychologists and psychometricians. We thank our main organizers, headed by our PAPCon 2025 Chair, Dr. Emmanuel Hernani. Let's give him a round of applause. There. Okay. Ay, sorry. Hinahanap ko po yung certificates kanina, hindi ko makita. Andito pala. Alright. We would like to give our certificate to our closing speaker, Dr. Miriam Cue, Dr. Glenn. Ano ba? So the certificate. Dito na tayo sa baba, ma'am. Gusto niyo po ba sa taas? Ayan. So, ayan. Alright. We also thank our Cebu delegations of schools. We could not have conducted this event without the help of our Cebu universities. Can we give a round of applause to our volunteers? Many of them do not eat on time. I mean, just to provide us with the service that we need. We also would like to thank our technical crew, many of which also did not eat on time. Thank you very much, and we would like to sincerely express that our event happened because you also somehow contributed and gave your best effort. Okay? Seeing how at this time we are still a big crowd gives me the afterthought that yes, I become more convinced that we are really all committed towards becoming better psychologists and psychometricians. Even guidance counselors are with us, and mental health professionals. Now, remember lang po that even the best of us can learn from the expertise of another. So let us celebrate our community of learners, our community of psychology practitioners. Let us remain connected, no? And yun nga, connect with one another, no? So that we can be better in our work, no? Taking care also of ourselves. Do not forget, no, that we cannot help others if we do not take care of ourselves. We thank all of our plenary speakers, our learning session moderators, our guests from our different foreign organizations, most especially ARUPS, no, for spending their 8th Congress here in Manila. In Cebu. All right, sorry po. We will see you again in Davao when we will commune for PAPCon 2026 at mula po sa PAP Board of Trustees. We thank you all from the bottom of our heart. Marami pong salamat sa inyong lahat. Okay na po tayo. So wala po tayong lunch for the third day. Yun lang po ang sasabihin kong additional announcement. Thank you po for being here.
She retired as colonel to join the Supreme Court. Tapos I was afraid. I worked